This conference will now be recorded.
Good afternoon, everyone. Director Williams here.
President
Director Williams. Yeah, that's President Williams, and the chair of this committee is Chairwoman Gray, so we're waiting for her to kick off the meeting.
Okay.
Hi, something happened. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes, Chairwoman Gray, we can hear you.
Yeah, my connection, I lost the connection, so now we're back. All right, we're ready to start. Director Deere is there?
Yes, I'm here.
Great. All right, welcome to the Water Policy and Legislation Committee and special meeting of the Board of Directors for West Basin Municipal Water District, February 16, 2021. It's now 1:02. We'll call the committee meeting to order. We do have a quorum. Public comment, Mr. Shields.
Chairwoman Gray, we do not have any public comment today.
Presentations,
Likewise, we have no presentations.
action calendar,
We have nothing today, Chairwoman, for the action calendar.
right, item 6, information calendar, Mr. Shields, please.
Okay, good afternoon, Chairwoman Gray and members of the committee and board and staff. And I see Craig Cadwallader just joined us. Yeah, we have two information items on our calendar today. We have our legislative update from both state and federal lobbyists and generally what's going on in both arenas. And also under the state legislative update, having EJ give us just a brief review of the UCLA study, the report that recently came out titled "The Human Right to Water in Poor Communities of Color, Urban Disadvantaged Community Water Systems in Southern Los Angeles County." So we'll also be covering that as part of his ledge report for the state. So with that, our Manager of Water Policy and Resources Development, Mr. EJ Caldwell, could you introduce this item? Cover it, please.
Yes, thank you very much, Patrick. Members of the board and committee. The item before you today pretty much begins on packet page 5. That's where you'll find the initial update from our Sacramento lobbyists, Niamel Pappas and Associates. And I'll walk you through that. I'll touch on a few of the specific issues that are outlined there in the memo. First and foremost, when we've been able to kind of review the governor's proposed budget that's required by the California State Constitution and really begins to kick off the budget process. But we typically find that you won't really be able to put together a budget until well after the May revise, because that's when you'll really start to see exactly what kind of revenue the state is expecting from those tax revenues. And really, I think for this year, you're really going to see the impacts to COVID-19 and people's ability to pay their taxes and pay their bills. And that's going to be a common theme that you hear throughout this legislative report. So I'll try to kind of bring it back to this specific item in relation to helping out the general population that's really struggling through COVID-19. So that first item before you is specifically related to housing and rental eviction moratoriums. You know that throughout the state of California, people have not been able to pay rates, especially in our disadvantaged communities and specifically the severe disadvantaged communities. And you've seen that impact not only renters, but also homeowners that aren't receiving those rents, and so obviously are being impacted on their mortgage. California State did receive $1.5 billion in federal grant funding to assist in this, and the state is now in the process of creating a process for renters to apply for relief. This is crucial, and I think what you're going to see, and again, this will be a related theme, is the state of California and their ability to implement these programs quickly to provide relief as soon as possible. And that'll tie into Governor Gavin Newsom when we talk a little bit about the effort to recall him. In a very similar related effort, I bring this to your attention just a little bit below where the page is now. You can see the headliner for water debt. And this really jumped off the page when I read it. I was aware that the state of California was requesting voluntary reporting for community water systems to report on delinquencies on water bills. And you can see that they did receive 559 responses. That covers roughly 28 million people who received water from those community water systems. And you can see that at least 1.6 million California households have utility debt when it comes to water. And you can see that it accumulates to over $1 billion. This next paragraph, the average debt is roughly $500. But you can see that within LA County, there are multiple, thousands of households with over $1,000 worth of debt. And you're really going to see, I think, legislation that seeks to tie into this to provide relief. Obviously, West Basin tracks this. I point this out that West Basin Municipal Water District is not a community water system. We do not own the potable water system that delivers to our service area. We're the wholesale imported water provider. So we do have a duty to work with our individual retailers to make sure that if they are impacted, that we can provide similar relief, because as you know, Metropolitan Water District did pass some relief to its member agencies to actually go into deferment. So obviously, if any of our retailers were to require that, we could actually pass that deferment through West Basin to them. But as lucky as we have it, while I do expect there to be a lot of delinquency within the West Basin service area, it does not appear as though the region as a whole has been severely impacted. That being said, we will continue to track this issue. You'll see on the very bottom of packet page 5 are the recall efforts with Rescue California. And you can see that collectively they've received about 1.2 million signatures for recall, with only 410,000 of those being verified. And it notes in this memo that they would need about 2 million signatures in order to qualify this for the ballot. But I put this in perspective because within this section, you can see that it wasn't too long ago that Gavin Newsom had one of the highest success rates and popularity rates of any California governor. It was at 60%. And to be in the midst of a recall effort, it really ties to a lot of the issues that we're facing, not just with the community and business shutdowns, the stay-at-home orders. You can see that in the economy, and of course with these delinquency issues, whether it be renters or utilities. So that's going to really play out. And I know that a lot of people talk and make comparisons between this recall effort and the Gray Davis effort. And it's really important to note that that seemed to have kind of that avalanche momentum as well. It kind of was a one thing and then another thing, and all of a sudden you had what was a fairly popular governor at the time just get swept up in this effort to recall. And so we can see these things happen in politics, and it's going to be something that we'll want to closely track. You might recall in the last recall effort, the process for that is that once it gets qualified for the ballot, it does get placed on a ballot, and then of course anybody can collect and gather signatures to qualify as a potential replacement. So when voters go, if they were to be asked the question, it would simply state, do you want to recall, yes or no? And then beneath that, there would be a question of, if the person is recalled, who would you vote for? And it's a simultaneous vote. So it kind of provides an opportunity. You'll recall Arnold Schwarzenegger, won that election and won it handedly. But it really seemed to tie into a lot of politics within California as to who wanted to run or possibly run against Gray Davis. So you could really see the similarities there, and we'll continue to track it, as well as we'll track a lot of the variable items and issues that could actually contribute to that. And that next item is right there, the vaccine rollout. And obviously, the state is working hard, county by county, to get people vaccinated as quickly as possible. Obviously, you need the vaccine in order to vaccinate. And it was, I think, noted today in the press that they are kind of near an all-time low right now. So they're going to need more vaccines. But obviously, it's got to be organized, and we got to get people in there. And I think that if you look at the press that's been coming out of the administration's office, I think they understand the issues and the concerns of the general public as far as this mounting effort for a recall. And so you're really seeing kind of this outpouring of effort to get some of these things done. So we'll continue to track that. Moving on to some of the legislative items, that some of which are related. We did want to highlight.
Question, please.
Oh, yes, sir.
Madam Chair. Well, I was just wondering, is there another Terminator out there?
It depends on who you ask. I would point out, yes, that the former mayor of San Diego has announced his intent to run. He is supporting the recall effort, and that is former Mayor Falconer. And so you already have one hat in the ring, if you will, but that's not to say that more wouldn't come. You recall I've heard a lot of names. So
Yeah, Cox is running as well as Mayor Faulkner.
Well, no, Faulkner's running. Yeah, he's been running for a while. He's out of office now, though, right?
Correct.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So we'll continue to track this, and perhaps next month I'll present a list of people that have already stated that they intend to run if there is a recall. So we can update you there. I want to bring to your attention in the middle of packet page 6, Patrick mentioned this briefly. So we're continuing to track what we would call our high priority legislation that not only impacts the water industry, but the West Basin service area. And obviously with the effort back in 2020 related to the Central Basin Municipal Water District, we've been tracking that issue. And as we heard about the study that was coming out of UCLA related to the human right to water in poor communities of color, we wanted to analyze that report and see if and how it impacts West Basin, the issues that it addresses that might be a part of West Basin, and really see where the recommendations are moving towards when it comes to that issue. And after reading the report and kind of going through West Basin's side of things, it's important to note a couple of things. First and foremost, the report analyzes community water systems in southern Los Angeles County. So if you look at southern Los Angeles County, that includes the entire West Basin service area from Malibu all the way down. The areas of focus are related to community water systems and predominantly those serving the disadvantaged community as well as the severely disadvantaged communities. Obviously, West Basin Municipal Water District has portions of our service area that are in the disadvantaged community. However, West Basin itself is not a community water system. And as you read through the document, none of the retailers identified and specifically referenced are in relation to any of the West Basin community water systems or our retailers. Our retailers are predominantly the county. So you have the LA County up in Malibu, Topanga area. You have investor-owned utilities, and you also have municipalities that comprise all of the West Basin service area. And while the area of focus of the report doesn't focus on what you would call a small community water system, they are really focused on those ones that are considered to be at risk or high risk of failure. And those are typically the ones that have severe water quality issues, extremely high infrastructure needs and investment needs, which could impact severely rate issues. And then it seeks to identify opportunities for potential consolidation. And in looking at consolidation, they try to figure out who would be the best consolidators for those community water systems that serve the disadvantaged community and that they could do so in a decent manner. And the report simply identifies that really you need to find a willing consolidator, so somebody that has incentive. You need to find a consolidator that has the capacity to consolidate it, so take over a small, struggling system. And 3, you need to be able to do that in a way that won't impact the current services. You want to improve those services. And ultimately, the report identifies that investor-owned utilities are predominantly the best opportunity for a consolidator, one of which is because they have flexibility in their rates. Their rates are regulated by the California Public Utilities Commission, and therefore they don't need to go through the typical Proposition 218, so they can adjust their rates. 2, they can spread their rates over their entire investor-owned utility. And 3, they have an incentive to invest in the system as a whole. So they can go to the PUC, seek additional rate funds, and then invest that into the struggling water system. As you look through the West Basin service area, you don't really see any of the municipality, the county, or the investor-owned utilities that are likely to be consolidated. You could see some opportunities where there's an ability to potentially be a consolidator to a small system. And the example would be, although it's not near the West Basin service area, was Sativa, that ultimately went to an investor-owned utility. It is worth noting that while it doesn't make any recommendations specific to West Basin and consolidation as a whole at the wholesale level, it did make one interesting conclusion, and that was that within the Central Basin Municipal Water District service area, it did note that they could be a potential exception to the typical rule for a consolidator. It said that because of the service area and because of the overlap amongst so many of these systems, and I believe they identified 29 systems within southern LA County, none of which are in the West Basin service area, as potentially needing assistance. Central Basin does encompass the majority, if not all of those. But ultimately, the report notes that Central Basin does not have the capacity or the management experience to do that. And ultimately, you saw that, and there is a case study within that report on Sativa. And they note in there that Central Basin Municipal Water District did put in or submit a bid to be the consolidator there and operate the Sativa water system. And ultimately, they were not selected. So I think when I look at that report, it brings to my attention a lot of the issues that southern LA County faces. It also brings to my attention the fact that West Basin has a great deal to offer, specifically related to expertise, knowledge, great management, and opportunity. Secondly, it points to the fact that water rates vary so much throughout the county and impact all of our community water systems differently. And if you look through that report on page A1, there is an analysis of all the community water systems, and it looks at all of their different water rates. And the report correctly identifies that there are multiple different factors that impact your rates, one of which is the use of groundwater versus imported water. So in looking at that and really focusing in on the West Basin service area, we really don't have any retailer, any community water system that uses nearly all groundwater and no imported water. And those are the ones that you might see facing some of those issues, whether it be manganese within the water, so affecting water quality, and have the more versatility within their rates. So we do have the report for you. There is a link embedded in this memo. You can see it listed right here on, I believe it's page 6, listed report. If you click on that, it'll take you to the report. I have provided a two-pager that we can send out to you that just kind of highlights some of the issues. But I will tell you that the result was predominantly that the report is not seeking to remedy any situation in the West Basin service area, but merely to identify some of the issues in southern LA County and really identify some of the opportunities and the resources that are available to those community water systems. So West Basin staff is going to continue to track not only this report, but the results of it. It is included in this state legislative update because there could be potential legislation that could result from it. But that being said, I think if you look at the underlying theme of the report is that it's very difficult to force consolidation in some of these cases, if not most of these cases. So we're going to continue to track it. We do not think that the study will impact the Central Basin issue that was introduced as legislation in 2020, nor at this time do we anticipate that legislation to come back in 2021. But we wanted to include it here because I know a lot of people are talking about it. So again, if you have any specific questions to the report, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you, EJ. Are there any questions? EJ, thank you for providing an update on the report because it is of interest to all of us. So thank you very much.
Not a problem.
Want to continue?
I will continue and touch on just a few more items. You can see that we are tracking Senate Bill 222 by Senator Dodd related to water affordability assistance programs. This is directly related to the issue that we've pointed out earlier in this report. We'll continue to track it. Senate Bill 223, but also by Senator Dodd, related to the discontinuation of residential water service. You'll recall that similar legislation was introduced last year and was ultimately passed. This legislation would seek to extend the existing moratorium for a longer period to prevent shutoffs. Senate Bill 45 at the beginning of page 7 is the Senate version of last year's water bond. You can see it's the Wildfire Prevention, Safe Drinking Water Drought Preparation, and Flood Protection Bond Act of 2022. I mentioned this last month, but I'll point it out once more, that we anticipate that this legislation is going to be a 2-year process. There is no intent on having this be on a ballot measure here in 2021, but there has been discussion as to November 2022. So we're going to continue to work with this. I know that NPA is doing a great job of tracking it and working with several of the different industry groups. We hope to see that $5.5 billion related to state general obligation bonds increase, and we would love to see additional funding for water recycling. So as such, we'll continue to work with our stakeholders, and this will be an item that staff will bring back for potential board action next month. As you recall, last year on the very same bill number, but it's a different bill, the West Basin Board of Directors did approve a support and seek amendments. So staff would be bringing forth the same recommendation so that we could continue to work with the stakeholders as far as potentially providing additional funds for local water supply development. The next bill that we have here is Assembly Bill 377. This is a joint bill, and you can see that Senator Hertzberg is also working on it. It's the California Clean Water Act. This bill is anticipated to have some kind of hiccups through the legislative session. I know a lot of the stakeholders are engaging with the two legislators that are running with this bill. We are in the process now of kind of tracking it and trying to see exactly where the authors want to go. But right now it seems to be a general concept as far as how they're going to move forward. And so again, staff will be bringing this back each month and possibly a recommendation once we learn a little bit more. And then of course, Assembly Bill 100 by Assemblymember Holden related to pipes and fittings and lead content. This is specifically related to the California Safe Drinking Water Act, which prohibits lead pipes and plumbing. And of course, this would expand that prohibition. This could potentially impact parts of the West Basin service area. So West Basin staff is learning a little bit more as far as the impacts. At the bottom of page 7, we did include the legislative calendar, and I wanted to highlight this specifically because you'll see that one of the legislative calendar items, February 19th, is quickly approaching the end of this week, and that's the last day for bills to be introduced. You'll recall that this won't be the last opportunity for legislators to do kind of gut amends and some different legislative strategies as far as introducing new legislation. But this will give us a kind of a complete starting list of bills that we want to track. So I wanted to highlight that for you. That'll be at the end of this week. And if anything comes up that's noteworthy, staff will be sending that through the Office of the General Manager to get to you. You typically see a flood of legislative activity in this final week. So we are going to continue to track that. You do have before you our complete tracking sheet from NPA. We like to include that every month. It kind of provides a bit of an overview of a lot of different issues, but you can see a lot of different things in relation to local government. That being said, I would like to move on to the Federal Affairs Report, and you can see that on packet page 13. And first and foremost, I wanted to just highlight Vance Goyak Associates, their efforts, as well as the efforts of Director Gloria Gray and, of course, Patrick Shields, as far as working on West Basin's congressional delegation letter of support for the Harbor South Bay project. As always, it is a complete team effort, but I know that Director Gray, you really stepped up and assisted us on some issues and helping us get not just the rounded coalition letter, but a complete coalition letter. And we're extremely grateful for that, as well as Patrick's efforts. Obviously, VSA, there are boots on the ground working there in Washington, D.C. And trying to assist. And so I think that when I look at this letter, I'm excited to see that not only do we have Representatives Barragan and Waters who have the potential projects within their congressional districts, but you also see some rounded out support with Congresswoman Bass, Congressman Ted Lieu, obviously Congressman Schiff, Lowenthal, and Lucille Roybal Allard has always come through on our behalf, despite the fact that she doesn't actually have a portion of the West Basin service area. You might remember a little bit that Congresswoman Grace Napolitano has always been a huge supporter of West Basin's efforts, and the reason that she is not included in this letter is because her committee typically handles U.S. Army Corps of Engineers efforts, and of course, we wouldn't want her name to be on this letter as it could impact her committee, but we wanted to include this letter, so you will see this letter included as an attachment there for your reference. I point out the fact that we do this every year. We work with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, our House delegation, as far as building support for the Harbor South Bay project. Funding does not always come each year. We don't always get awarded funding. We have received $1 million just last year in their 2020 work plan, and we are working with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, their South Pacific Division, as far as completing West Basin's agreement to begin the process of working on our new projects and to dedicate that $1 million to a specific project. And as such, I expect this letter to go to the U.S. Army Corps. It'll be included in our file. We're going to continue to fight for potential funding. But I think that in the immediate future, we're going to be working with that South Pacific Division on that agreement. And in speaking with our engineering department, we hope to bring that agreement to the West Basin Board of Directors in the coming months. I believe we should be able to get a draft from them this month, and of course, bring it to your attention as soon as possible. So I wanted to highlight that because of the related nature of our ability to get funding hinges on that agreement. And the $1 million that we have right now from the 2020 work plan, that is currently sitting with that South Pacific Division. We need to get that agreement completed in order to bring that on. And while obviously COVID-19 has impacted our ability to have kind of that in-person meeting with the Army Corps staff here in their LA office, that agreement is completed solely by the U.S. Army Corps. So once they're done with it, they'll send us a draft, but it's pretty formulaic and boilerplate. There won't be many opportunities. It just identifies the process in which they work and how West Basin will receive its funding. So we are working with them to rush that process as best they can, but we are waiting for them currently to get that report. So I wanted to highlight that. The next item, just beneath that, you can see Congress moves ahead on their $2 trillion COVID relief measure. This obviously you've read a lot about in the news. It's currently at $1.9 trillion. I hear it should be more. I've heard it should be less. Obviously, at a certain point with the previous administration, they were talking about a larger package than even this. So I think that working its way through the political system and Congress is going to be a big part of this process, and we're going to continue to track it. VSA will highlight the contents of that 1.9 trillion. They'll be sending us kind of a detailed list of that, and we will get that to you as soon as possible, as soon as we receive it. As part of this, and you can see this again at the top of packet page 14, this is very similar related to the issues that I pointed out within our state legislature, but you do have a lot of stakeholders working on water utilities relief. This is specifically related to West Basin as a wholesaler is typically not as impacted as a potential retailer, but when individuals and end users are not able to pay their bills, community water systems are impacted by that. So there is an effort right now in order to provide some assistance there. The next item is special districts legislation. I know that Director Houston had specific questions related to this. It has been introduced, reintroduced, HR 535, as well as Senate Bill 91. This would allow for special districts to have eligibility when it comes to funds that are passed through these COVID relief bills. West Basin staff right now is working with our federal counterparts, including the Association of California Water Agencies, as well as Metropolitan Water District, to really understand the lay of the land. As best we could understand, last year when similar legislation was introduced, it was opposed by the state of California and the administration at that time. They wanted to, obviously, and they wanted to assist special districts, but they didn't necessarily want to compete with special districts in the sense that there's only so much funding, and you can see that in the sense that there's only 1.9 trillion for all 50 states, counties, and municipalities as it trickles down. So we're going to provide a little bit more detail when we bring this back next month. The item beneath that is related to Congresswoman Grace Napolitano. The memo there states that she had intended to reintroduce her Recycle Water Investment and Improvement Act. And I did want to highlight this, that after we received this board memo, the Congresswoman did in fact reintroduce that legislation. It is HR 1015. West Basin Municipal Water District has supported her legislative efforts on this very similar matter, including the specific funding mechanisms, would create a competitive grant program that could provide as much as $500 million dedicated to advanced treatment technologies, including water recycling. So West Basin staff will be bringing this back with a staff recommendation in the next month for HR 1015. Just wanted to highlight that because it had changed. And just a couple of additional items. You'll see at the back end of this board memo, there are a handful of the appointments listed by the Biden administration. But I did want to highlight just that the climate change emergency legislation. You can see there HR 794, and this is dedicated specifically to the recent request that President Biden declare a climate change emergency. You can obviously see that several of the members from LA County have endorsed this effort, including Congresswoman Napolitano, Alan Lowenthal, and again, Barragan. So we're going to continue to track this and kind of get into the details of it and see exactly what it would entail. Obviously, The National Climate Emergency Act sounds, as though something that we would want to support, but perhaps there's a nuanced position that we could take depending on where the funding is going to be dedicated within that act. So with that, Madam Chair, that's all I have for you, unless you have any specific questions.
Thank you, EJ. Are there any questions?
Sure.
No, Director Houston, is that you?
Yes,
Would you like to ask a question?
I would love to ask some questions. Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, EJ.
Hi.
Hey, you talked about a few things, but also there's some other things I wanted to ask about. But first of all, thank you for the report on the water debt issue, which we all know is a very big issue at this time. That report came out from the State Water Resources Control Board. It's an issue that I brought up last year. I thought was going to be concerning, and here it is. So, again, that's one of the reasons I voted against raising the water rates last year, because I knew that that was not the right thing to do. And I think you mentioned it, but the majority of folks that were in that survey live right here in Los Angeles County, who are having the hardest time paying those bills that have gone upwards of $1,000 or more. So for some people that may not be a lot, but for many people around us, maybe not in our own service area, we know that's significant and it's not going to go away. So a couple things. One is the DOD bills, the 2 DOD bills. Are we going to look at understanding those better and potentially taking a position?
Yes, currently staff has been tracking this through the Association of California Water Agencies. There's actually a working group within the state legislative committee on it. And it's really important to highlight the differences of opinions on it. They range from oppose unless amended, and stay neutral.
Okay.
And I think that the side that won out is pretty much where you're coming from the sense that we're all aware that it's a real issue. So taking an oppose or an oppose unless amended doesn't really seem to acknowledge the importance of the issue. And so they sided with a neutral position. They decided with the idea that they would reach out to the legislator to say, hey, we recognize that this is a significant issue. How can we be of assistance? Really, the concerns are when you talk about affordable or water affordability and assistance programs, it's kind of how is it going to be funded? And you have federal funding available and you have some state funding, but the question is there going to be some sort of water tax? And I know that the senator said that that would not be included in this concept. There's a question as to whether there would be a administrative fee on California water systems. So there are real questions and issues here, but I think that from Aqua, and again, you talked about a diverse working group. You have 10 regions within Aqua, and you have different opinions from throughout all of those regions, and they're siding on the idea of let's work on this. There's something here, there's a problem, but how are we going to address it? How are we going to fix it? And so at this time, West Basin staff, not sure that that staff has a recommendation as of yet. We're working with them. We are working with NPA on the matter. But as things evolve and amendments get put forth, staff will be bringing it back for a potential staff recommendation.
Okay, great. And in the meantime, EJ, can you send to me at least who's supporting the bill and who's against it, if there's any roster? Just because I haven't gotten all the details. I've only seen a little bit about it in some media, but I would really like to know who's supporting it at this time, as well as those who might be against it. That'd be very helpful.
It might take us a short period to get that list because I'm sure they're working on it, but we'll reach out to the author.
That would be great. I think it'd be really good though for our board to understand the different groups and be cognizant of that as we move forward. I just see that we always tend to get in certain silos in the water community, and I just want to know, who all the players are, so we can make a good informed decision. The next one, I don't know if I heard you mention it or not. There was, and I've seen these things. So SB 323 by Caballero, and that one is sponsored by Aqua.
Is that the water quality legislation or the water rate issue?
Statute of limitations on legal challenges to water and sewer service rates.
I apologize for not having it included in here. I will point out that staff has been working on this matter. The proposed legislation actually came from Irvine Ranch Water District, and Christine Compton, who's an attorney over there, she reached out as she was drafting it, and so I had a chance to look at that. The question that came up for most people, obviously, is the legality of it, and so you do and again, I apologize for it not being included in the matrix. We will add it, but it does put kind of a very small amount of time allowable for people to challenge water rates. And the biggest issue for retail water rates, obviously, is Proposition 218. But unfortunately, you typically don't see people challenge those until they're really aware of them. And for individual end users of water, that could sometimes take years, before there aren't, as odd as it sounds, there's not too many people that really investigate and identify all of the issues with their bills. But this would allow a retailer to go and basically seek a judicial process to say, hey, this is how we adopt our rates. Does anybody challenge it? And if you miss that window, you would no longer be able to challenge those water rates. As drafted, as proposed, the bill does not impact a water wholesaler. So my concerns about it aren't too drastic. But I think that you're going to see some people supportive, some municipalities probably. The investor-owned utilities, obviously, they're regulated by the PUC. But I think that the attorneys and the attorney stakeholders could have concerns, as well as the EJ, the environmental justice, and well as the stakeholders that represent disadvantaged communities will have concerns.
Okay, perfect. See, well, that's good to know, because what I saw was that Aqua had put out some sort of a release announcing that, and I hadn't heard from our side what it was about. So obviously you actually put that quite well. It doesn't sound like something that we would support, or I would support, quite honestly. And again, it goes back to what I actually just said. Some of these things that come out of the different silos, and in this particular case, Aqua is pushing this, that may or may not be the best thing. So it goes back to my thought on the Dodd bills. I really want to know who's helping or, opposing those as well. So again, we can make an informed decision if that would be something we would get behind. So, but yeah, so obviously put this one on your tracker for us. Quite frankly, it doesn't sound like something I personally would support, but I'm just one person. Now, the last one on the state side was AB 361 by Rivas, and I do see that one highlighted in our list from NPA, at least, listed, maybe not highlighted, but listed. And that one, the Special Districts Association supporting. So is that something that we might take a look at?
Very much so.
Okay.
So all the bills have now been introduced or will be by this Friday. There is that kind of initial waiting period. So this bill was introduced on February 1st. So now you'll have to wait for it to be assigned and heard in committee. As soon as that happens, we'll kind of get a better look as far as what that bill is going to possibly do. We would anticipate there'd be amendments once it gets introduced into a committee. And so we'll be bringing this one back with a bit more detail as far as the concept of the bill.
Okay, good. Because again, like I've said in the past, I see that different organizations start pushing bills and they start really asking the agencies to support them. And I would like us to at least have an understanding of what they are, let alone potentially participating. So let's please keep track of that one, EJ. Thank you. And last but not least, on the federal side, you actually did address it, and yes, I'm the one that brought it up in the past. So the special districts legislation, Garamendi is carrying, I think it is again, if I'm not mistaken, it's Garamendi this time too, right? But HR 533 and S91, I think that would be something we should still watch and potentially look at supporting in the future. One of the things I noticed in these write-ups, and again, special districts was putting it out, and then of course VSA told us, but Senator Feinstein was supportive of this in the past and still is, as well as Garamendi. I think Lowenthal down in Long Beach, if I'm not mistaken. So, we have people in our wheelhouse who are supportive of this. I think it would be something we should look at. And also I see that there's some support across the aisle, like John Cornyn in Texas. So is that something we might look at in the future?
Very much so. And, the reason it's included here, obviously, both Patrick and myself, as well as Matt Vey, now works closely with VSA. They know that this is kind of a high priority issue, so we're going to continue to track it every day. The real difference, quite frankly, is the change in the administration. The previous administration, we didn't really feel like there was much of a chance of this legislation being incorporated into a COVID package or passing. We now do. So we're actively not just looking at it, but also making sure that it's written correctly. So we're looking at the details, saying, hey, if this is going to pass, let's make sure that it's the right type of legislation. So we're not just tracking it, but we're actively working on the matter.
Okay, good. Okay, great. Thank you, EJ, very much.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Nope.
Okay. EJ, does that conclude your report?
It does, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Thank you. Patrick?
Yes, thank you, Chairwoman Graham. We'll follow up on those requests for information from the previous comments. So the second part of the information calendar is 6B on your packet, page 20, I believe. And this is the Metropolitan Water District report. And we'll have our water policy resources analyst too, Tammy Hirlahai, present today. Tammy, are you there?
I am. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Tammy.
Hi, good afternoon, members.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. So this memo includes a summary of Metropolitan Water District activities. In addition to the January board reports, I will provide a short summary on a couple of programs that are relevant and of interest to West Basin. So these include the Integrated Resources Plan, along with a pilot program to study leak detection in municipal water systems. The report will also conclude at the end with a brief summary of the water supply conditions. So first, with regard to the Integrated Resources Plan, which is also referred to as the IRP, West Basin staff and our general manager are highly engaged and working together with Metropolitan staff and other member agencies in updating the 2020 IRP. We have working groups where we're engaged in the planning and the rate refinement discussions. The IRP is used as a planning document to ensure long-term water reliability. For more information on the background of this process, a white paper was developed in an effort to provide an understanding of the use and benefits in updating the 2020 plan. And a copy is also provided with this report as attachment A. The updated 2020 IRP will identify action to include adaptive management strategies and utilize water resources actions in planning for 100% of supply reliability from Metropolitan. This approach includes identifying 4 probable future scenarios that can provide an example of what water reliability conditions might look like in the future. Also, these 4 scenarios will show what the probability would be of a supply shortage in response to significant changes in demand or climate impacts. So by examining water supply and demand, a gap analysis will show under each scenario which will indicate a gap of what potential demand might be and what potential supplies would be available. And during last month's IRP committee planning meeting, Metropolitan staff provided a presentation to discuss with the board and gather feedback. So moving forward, Metropolitan staff will continue to work in refining these scenarios. And the final draft of the 2020 IRP is anticipated to be brought to the board in September this year, 2021, for consideration and adoption. So I hope I didn't miss anything, but if Chairwoman Gray or Director Williams has anything to add, I would defer to them.
Thank you, Tammy. I think you certainly gave us the important issues that we're dealing with right now with the IRP. The key thing is that we are updating the 2021, and it is a planning document. The board has been very engaged on this issue. We meet every month, and staff is presenting different models that the board can look at in terms of making some decision in terms of water supply in the future. And so it's an ongoing dialogue of the IRP. So I think you're very comprehensive, Tammy. But Director Williams, did you want to add anything?
No, thank you. It was well done. Thank you.
All right, any questions on IRP before Tammy goes on for board members? Okay, Tammy, thank you. Did you complete your report?
Yes, please. Thank you. So another item I wanted to also mention was the Municipal Leak Detection Assistance Program. So this is a pilot program that is being developed by Metropolitan as a demonstration program. And this is a continuation of a research program that Metropolitan and the Municipal Water District of Orange County has partnered with during the past 2 years. This program would offer incentive to test for system leakage in distribution line to reduce the loss of non-revenue water. And through the research partnership that Metropolitan had with the Municipal Water District of Orange County, the findings have indicated leaks have been found in different areas of municipal systems that are identified as non-billable water. So what would be helpful for retail agencies is that this program could support their efforts in submitting annual water loss performance reports to the California Department of Water Resources. So each year, utilities are required to submit validated water loss performance reports directed under Senate Bill 555. The State Water Resources Control Board is expected to adopt rules requiring retail water suppliers to meet performance standards by July of 2021. And the regulation would become effective October 2021. So through this pilot program, Metropolitan plans to establish a flat incentive of $170 per mile for agencies to perform leak detection and repair activities. And so before I move on, again, I hope I didn't miss anything, but if Chairwoman Gray or Director Williams has anything to add to that program, I could defer to them.
Thank you. Any questions of board members? Okay, Tammy, you're doing a great job. Continue, please.
Okay, thank you. Also included in this report is a list of items acted upon by Metropolitan committees and their board January 11th and 12th, 2021. So additionally, more information with the individual board letter can be found on Metropolitan's website for interest. Regarding Metropolitan Community Partnering Program, West Basin has not received any local community group interest within our service area. There have been nothing received recently. And then before moving on, I just wanted to move on to the water supply update. Attached as another exhibit to this memo is the graphics that Metropolitan put together on a continual basis. And so this year, Metropolitan is beginning the water year with a strong water storage position. It is a slow start to the water year in terms of precipitation, but there's still a wide range of outcomes as the water year continues to develop. And so in the middle of this chart, the highlights summarize the California Sierra snowpack at 45% of normal. The California precipitation at the 8th Station Index is 40% of normal. Upper Colorado Basin snowpack 73% of normal, and Upper Colorado precipitation at 64% of normal. And then just below to the left are graphs showing metropolitan supplies, which show very healthy levels. And Metropolitan ended calendar year 2020 with a record storage reserve level of 3.2 million acre feet. And to the left is a graphic of the Sierra snowpack showing a slow start to the season. However, with the recent storm, the snowpack conditions are now showing improvement as of this week. So storage reserves for the State Water Project in Colorado River are shown to the second page. And lastly, with respect to the allocations for the State Water Project contracting agencies, which include Metropolitan, the initial allocation for 2021 is 10% of the contractor requested Table A amounts. So this concludes the report, and I would be happy to address any questions.
Any questions? Okay, thank you, Tammy.
This is
Oh,
Director
Houston? Yes.
I guess I mean, this is obviously all just January stuff. So, you know, it's a month out, it's a month old, but February, there was a lot of action at Metropolitan, but I'm not even going to ask or go into it. But my only thing was, Tammy, welcome aboard. But we never got a formal introduction of you being at West Basin. So it's a surprise. Maybe Patrick can give you an introduction.
Yeah, I'd be glad to, Director Houston. I'm sorry if it's a surprise. I believe EJ has mentioned Tammy before in different calls, but yeah, Tammy has joined us here in the capacity of the official title Water Policy and Resources Analyst, and previously was in the employ of Central Basin, Director Houston. And we had 2 vacancies from last July, and this is one of the 2 vacancies that we fill. And Tammy is an eminently qualified and great addition to the staff. And EJ, would you care to add anything to what I just said?
No, Patrick, you did an excellent job with it. I did want to point out just some of the things that Tammy's really been able to help us out on. Obviously, you know, with the loss of Alex and Marina, 2 excellent, highly qualified staffers who left simply just to work on specific issues, whether it be closer to their home, but they're gone, but not forgotten, and continue to work with us on a regular basis. But Tammy's going to be able to join us and work specifically on some of the functionalities that not only they worked on, but also some of the other ones, including Leanne Kirk, who left some time ago. So Tammy will be running a lot of our grant efforts to make sure that we have ample funding for programs and projects. That includes work on the Integrated Regional Water Management, as well as the DAC, the Disadvantaged Community Involvement Program. So she'll be able to kind of be our eyes and ears and actions there. She'll be assisting us on tracking Metropolitan Water District issues, and then of course serving as point on our water bottle filling station program. And I know Director Houston, you had asked about that last month. Obviously, we've been trying to work with all of our municipalities, retailers, and all the school districts in the West Basin service area. We have been promoting the water bottle filling station program extensively, you know, not only through emails, direct phone calls, and newsletters, but because of COVID-19, we really haven't seen a lot of interest as much, you know, currently. But of course, Tammy's been able to kind of jump in and hit the ground running, working directly with not only our past applicants, but also potential new applicants. So we are extremely excited to have Tammy join us. So thank you very much, not only for asking, Director Houston, but also Tammy, thank you for joining us.
Okay, great, thank you. And no, EJ had mentioned it once prior, Pat, but beyond that, no, I had not heard any further. So, but thank you very much and welcome, Tammy. Welcome aboard.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Director Houston.
Okay, all right. Is that it, Patrick? Other information?
Chairwoman Gray, those are the two information items, and we do not have a closed session today.
All right. No closed session. What's the next item? Move up the agenda, please.
Yeah, on number 8, we have director's comments and future agenda items.
I think director's comments. I'll start with Director Houston.
Nothing else. Thank you.
Director Deere,
Nothing else, thank you.
Director Williams,
No, thank you.
the Director Alvarez on the call.
No.
Okay, Director Gray, thank you to EJ and Tammy for those reports this morning. I think that was the only staff that presented. EJ, thank you. Always an excellent and comprehensive report. Tammy, welcome aboard again. Very good this morning, your reporting. And thank you to all the staff that's online and the public. With nothing else, no future agenda items. And thank you, Mr. Shields. This committee meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairwoman.